El gusto de presentar a Julieta Camaño. Buenas noches, Julieta.
Muy buenas noches, Víctor Hugo. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo están ustedes? Como siempre, tenemos invitados especiales en nuestro Twitter, en @BDL Víctor Hugo. Hoy hemos invitado a tuitear en vivo en nuestro programa al señor Gabriel Di Meglio. Él es historiador, presentador de varios programas en Encuentro, también en Paca Paca. Y mañana a las 22 comienza con un nuevo ciclo en el canal Encuentro. Le mandamos un beso muy grande a Federico Randazzo, ex compañero de Bajada de Línea y ahora productor. También de Gabriel. Será el encuentro mañana en Asamblea del siglo XIII a partir de las 22. Bueno, él ya tuiteó, Víctor Hugo, y dice: lo más terrible de Thatcher, además del Belgrano, es cómo logró crear un consenso para su política totalmente antipopular. También estará tuiteando con nosotros el señor Federico Gastón Pútaro. Él es integrante de la Mesa Nacional de la Federación Universitaria Argentina de los Estudiantes. Dice Federico: Thatcher murió y sus viudas son los genocidas como Videla y presidentes e intelectuales de derecha como Piñera y Vargas Llosa. Esto y otros datos más hoy en @BDL Víctor Hugo.
Antes de hablar de la Thatcher vista desde Inglaterra en el crimen horrendo que cometió contra el Belgrano, vamos a leer brevemente el final de una nota de un hombre muy prestigioso, el profesor Luis Alberto Romero, con el título: a Margaret Thatcher no le tembló el pulso, poco menos que faltaba felicitarla. Y las últimas líneas dicen que nuestro nacionalismo paranoico, sí, no veo, está muy chiquita la letra en la distancia. Lo importante son las palabras finales, pero sé que de ese pecado, es decir, del hundimiento del Belgrano, Margaret Thatcher está exenta. Esto es lo que apareció en La Nación esta semana. A mí me llamó muchísimo la atención y empezamos a buscar materiales que en algún caso, pero no en todos, ya hemos compartido con ustedes. Por ejemplo, una entrevista realizada por una de las más prestigiosas periodistas de la historia británica, Diana Gould, la cual, mano a mano con Thatcher, la increpó por aquel hundimiento del Belgrano en estos términos.
Mrs. Thatcher, why, when the Belgrano, the Argentinian battleship, was outside the exclusion zone and actually sailing away from the Falklands, why did you give the orders to sink it?
But it was not sailing away from the Falklands. It was in an area which was a danger to our ships and to our people on them.
Outside the exclusion zone?
But it was in an area which we had warned. At the end of April, we had given warnings that all ships in those areas, if they represented a danger to our ships, were vulnerable. Goodness me, I lived with many, many anxious days and nights.
Mrs. Thatcher, you started your answer by saying it was not sailing away from the Falklands. It was on a bearing of 280, and it was already west of the Falklands. So I'm sorry, but I cannot see how you can say it was not sailing away from the Falklands.
When it was sunk.
When it was sunk.
It was a danger to our ships.
No, but you have just said at the beginning of your answer that it was not sailing away from the Falklands. And I'm asking you to correct that statement.
But it's within an area outside the exclusion zone, which I think what you are saying is sailing away.
I think no, I'm not, Mrs.
Which way it was facing at the time.
Danger to our ships.
Mrs. Thatcher, I am saying that it was on a bearing 280, which is a bearing just north of west. It was already west of the Falklands, and therefore nobody with any imagination can put it sailing other than away from the Falklands.
I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Mrs. Gould.
Mrs. Gould. When the orders were given to sink it, and when it was sunk, it was in an area which was a danger to our ships.
Well,
now, you accept that, do you?
No, I don't.
I'm sorry, it was, and you must accept
no,
that
Mrs.
when we
Thatcher,
gave the order, when we changed the rules which enabled them to sink Belgrano, the change of rules had been notified at the end of April. It was all published that any ships that were a danger to ours within a certain zone, wider than the Falklands, were likely to be sunk. And again, I do say to you, my duty, and I'm very proud that we put it this way and adhered to it.
What motive are you seeking to attach to Mrs. Thatcher and her government in this? Is it the inefficiency, lack of communication, or is it a desire for action, a desire for war?
It is a desire for action and a lack of communications, because on giving those orders to sink the Belgrano, when it was actually sailing away from our fleet and away from the Falklands, was in effect sabotaging any possibility of any peace plan succeeding.
I think it could only be in Britain that a Prime Minister was accused of sinking an enemy ship that was a danger to our Navy, when my main motive was to protect the boys in our Navy. That was my main motive, and I'm very proud of it.
Mrs.
And
Thatcher.
one day all the facts will be revealed, and they will indicate, as I have said.
No parece Thatcher exenta de ese pecado, como dice ese editorial del diario La Nación. Pero para reafirmar este criterio, pasemos de una nota del año 83 a una del año 85. El periodista que van a ver brevemente, pero que pregunta lo decisivo, es David Frost, aquel de la famosa entrevista a Nixon que se convirtió en una película muy vista en todo el mundo no hace demasiado tiempo.
What I know, Mr. Frost, is that ministers have given the information in the House of Commons. When they came and it said that one thing was not correct, I was the first to say, right, give the correct information. And the correct and deadly accurate information was given. But I do not spend my days prowling round the pigeonholes of the Ministry of Defence looking at the precise course of action.
No.
One moment.
Yes.
That ship was a danger to our boys. That's why that ship was sunk.
Couldn't believe the orders, could he? I mean, when he'd sent the message it changed direction and he asked for verification, he couldn't believe it.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Commander Rayford Brown demanded reconfirmation, did he not?
I do not. I know when we gave the order to sink, and that is all in the public domain. I know it was right to sink her, and I would do the same.